This is a brief tutorial of the game Forest Shuffle as played on Board Game Arena. Forest Shuffle is a tableau building, nature themed game where you are laying out trees and then placing animals and plants within those trees to collect sets and combo cards in order to score the most points by the end of the game. You start your game with a handful of 6 cards, and you can on your turn either take 2 cards or play 1 card. Now, taking cards can either be from the top of this deck or it can be from the clearing. You see, we have some cards here in the clearing because we're a bit into the game already, but the clearing starts out completely empty. You can combo, you can take 1 card from the clearing and 1 card from the deck. You can take a card from the deck and then decide. It is up to you how you want to take those cards, but you get 2 cards, or you can play 1. Your hand limit is 10 though, so if you have 9 cards, you would only be able to take 1, and if you have 10 cards, you would not be able to take any cards, and you would need to play. To play a card, you have to pay its cost. So, for example, this tree card has a cost of 2. That is that number at the top left of the card. So I would have to pay 2 other cards in my hand in order to play this Douglas fir. And those cards go into the clearing. So when you are paying for cards, you are putting out cards that other people can later take. Something to keep in mind: if you see some people really want certain cards, you may not want to use those as payment in order to play that card. So the tree cards are the first thing that you need to play. So for example, here, in my case, I paid 2 cards and I played out this tree. You can have as many trees in your forest as you'd like. They don't have to be full before you have new ones. But I paid 2. Now there's a bit of an exception with the tree cards. Whenever you play a tree card, there's a card that is flipped into the clearing just from the deck. That only happens when you play tree cards. Also, you should know that whenever the clearing, at the end of your turn, if the clearing is ever 10 or more cards, you can see here that it's 8. This shows how many there are currently. Then the clearing is completely wiped away and blank again. Something to keep in mind as well: as you are paying for cards, you may want to trigger that so that other people can't take cards that you're putting out there. So now that I have a tree, I can play an animal or plant card. Now you can see there are 2 different types of cards that are split. This one is split vertically, and these are split horizontally. And so you decide which one of these that you would like to play, and you play those, get the bonuses, and then they give you scoring at the end of the game. The trees also have bonuses in scoring, or powers in scoring. Any of the light colored boxes under a tree or an animal or plant is what you would get as the action when you play that card. And then anything with the acorn symbol in the darker boxes, those are the scoring. Also in the help pop-up in BGA, it shows you both the name of it, any tags, which are, the tag is this tag next to here, but there's also the tree type, which is kind of a tag as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. How many of those exist. In the actual game, there's a very tiny gray number next to the name there. You can see that's 7. That shows you how many of those cards are in the deck total, so that may be helpful when you're in certain cases where you're trying to collect a certain number of them. Any bonus or power that you get, and then the scoring at the end. Now, some cases, like this one up here, it has an effect, right? This effect, that circle right there, just lets me take another turn. Some, though, have a bonus. Now, this is also take another turn, but it's next to this binoculars with the arrow here. Now, the only way that you can trigger that bonus is if when you pay for the card, you use the same symbol here in the top right to pay for it on each card. So this costs 2 cards to pay. I paid with these 2 cards. Both of them have at least one of those symbols on them, this one here and this one there. So I was able to trigger that bonus that lets me take another turn. I end up using 1 card to pay for this card, put this bird and slide it in the top. You see how that worked? It covered up the bottom part, so that doesn't count towards my end of scoring, but this top bird does. It's 3 points at the end of the game. Its power, though, is to take another turn. So I'm doing a large kind of combo here after I'd built up a bunch of cards. In this case, I slid this card underneath. Now this one didn't cost any, so I didn't have to pay any cards for it. It's the gnat, and it has a power or an effect that lets me play any number of bat cards for free. Whenever you play a card for free using that power that has kind of the down arrow, you don't have to pay the cost, but you don't get any effect or bonus for it. You do get the end of game scoring, and any tags that are triggered will also be triggered again, but the actual action will not take effect or any bonuses. In this case, let me play any number of bats. I have two, but I only have space for one. I'd have to have another tree to put that second one there. Maybe if I'd planned ahead and had another tree, I could have doubled it up. No worries. I decided to play this bat on this side, and now I get this this bat here, and I have 3 of these 4 spots available on this tree. I could put one more underneath the tree, and it would be completely full. There are a few exceptions to that, like the rabbits you can stack on a single side, and the toads underneath you can stack, but for the most part, each tree has only those 4 spots. So we talked about some of the effects and the bonuses. The scoring is always shown with these acorns. The acorns are end of game points, and while BGA will track those points for you if you set that option when you set up a game in BGA, the points only matter at the very end of the game. For example, here I get 5 points for this bat, but only if I have at least 3 different bats. And so we're looking at the end of the game, do I have at least 3 different bats? If so, then each of them give me 5 points. And this one here gives me 1 point for every bat in my forest. So at the end of the game, it looks at how many bats do I have. Right now it's only worth 1, but eventually it will be worth more. Some then just give you straight points. Some give you points, but they have requirements, such as this lynx. It gets 10 points, but I have to have at least 1 roe deer. This wild boar gives me 10 points, which is great, but I need at least 1 squeaker. There's a squeaker down there, which is only 1 point, but if you combo it, then that's a nice set of points that you can have. There's that roe deer as well. So maybe I want to try one of those combos in order to do that. Like this bird here gets 5 points, but it has to be on a certain type of tree, this beech tree. Oh, this beech tree is worth 5 points, which is great, but I have to have at least 4 beeches in the forest. So that's a big difference. If I have 3, none of them are worth anything, but if I can get that 4th one, they're all worth 5 points. That's 20 points all of a sudden. Also, one of the effects I didn't mention before, if you ever see this square with a number in it, that's drawing a card, and it draws always from the top of the deck, not from the clearing. So whenever you see that either as its own thing or as a bonus, then you can get a card from the top of the deck. There is an option to play a tree if you don't have a tree card, and what happens is you flip over any of these cards, and they look like this, and they're considered a sapling. They don't give you any end of game scoring or have any effects, but they have places for other cards. And so that is an option if you really need to. I would try to avoid it, but if you're in a pickle and you have 10 cards and none of them are trees, maybe you just play that. It's free, but again, it doesn't have any tags, it doesn't have any effects or scoring, but it does give you spots to put animals. The other thing that everybody has is a cave. So you can see here, your kind of cave is shown at the right here. Any cards that are tucked in a cave are worth 1 point at the end of the game. You can't ever just tuck cards when you want. They always have to be triggered by some sort of card. For example, this raccoon lets you place any number of cards in your hand in the cave and then draw that number of cards. There's a bear card that lets you put the entire clearing under your cave, which can be nice. As the game progresses, we'll continue to go through this deck. There are 3 winter cards that are at the bottom third of this deck, randomly inserted into the bottom third. There are a total of 180 cards, but you take 10 out per player under 5 that you have. But whenever you hit that third winter card, the first two don't do anything. They just kind of warn you that the game is getting close to ending. When you hit that third one, the game ends immediately. The turn doesn't finish. There's no one extra turn for the rest of the players. The game is simply over, and whoever has the most points is the winner. One power that I forgot to mention were the mushrooms. So the mushrooms are the only ones that have an ongoing power, and they're basically, when you put them under a tree, then anytime you trigger that action, in this case, whenever you play a card with a paw symbol, so this wolf has it, both of these cards have it, then you get to receive a card. That's typically what it is. It's if something happens, then you get to trigger a card, and that happens throughout the game. So they're nice for early in the game, but they don't give you any points, so kind of plan those out accordingly. Like I said, anytime the clearing gets over 10, these are wiped. So if you're looking to draw a card from that clearing, keep that in mind, or if other people are looking to do so. And that's the game. Let's review. On your turn, you can either take 2 cards, you have a hand limit of 10, or play 1 card. You pay with those cards with other cards according to the cost on the top left. You can get the bonus if you pay with the same tags. Either one of the sides can have that tag, but all cards that you pay that card with have to have that tree tag. You can have as many cards in your forest as you want, but always a tree first, and then you place the plants or animals on the sides or underneath. A couple of things that BGA does nicely in the interface. So as you can see here, as I scroll down, my cards go with me, but if I want to keep them just here right under the clearing, I can do that and they will just stay there. So that's a preference that you can set, how you want those cards to be displayed. Also, especially if you're on mobile, you can toggle this mode here, and instead of having to hover over a card, you would click the question marks to get their help numbers on them. Again, that's mostly helpful on mobile where you don't have the ability to hover, and so then you could just touch these question marks. It will track how the winter cards and how many have gone through, and show everybody's how many cards they have in their hand and how many cards they have in their cave. So again, as soon as that third winter card comes up, the game is over, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Hope this was helpful. Thanks.